All right, Rabosai, good evening. Let us begin. So we are picking up Emir Hashem tonight. Lamed Dalet Amud Beis, 34b. Really exciting at the Gemara. Ahiyah. So the Gemara says, remember again, the Mishnah said that if you're davening and you make a mistake in your davening, so that is a siman ra. That is a bad omen. So now the Gemara says, in other words, a bad omen means that your tefillah is not accepted. So now the Gemara says, okay, which part of davening are you making a mistake in? Right? In other words, what's the mistake in? So the Gemara says, so we'll say first opinion is in avos, which makes sense. What's the logic there? In other words, if when you start Shemona Esrei, you're making a mistake at the beginning, that's a pretty negative omen for the rest of the davening. Others say that this concept of avos applies to a different idea. When you daven, you're supposed to have kavanah for the entire Shemona Esrei. But if you can't have kavanah for all of Shemona Esrei, at least have kavanah for one of the brachas. I ask the Gemara which bracha. Which bracha should you have kavanah for? Have kavanah for avos. I will say, by the way, that is halacha l'maisa, that although ideally one should have kavanah for all of Shemona Esrei, but again, if one, for whatever reason, can't have kavanah for all of Shemona Esrei, at least have kavanah for the first bracha for avos. Amar Lava Rabbi Chanina. So the Gemara says as follows. Remember again, they said about Rabbi Chanina, when he would daven for someone, he would be able to tell who would be healed and who wouldn't be healed. And they asked him, what are you, a Navi? And he said, no, but rather, again, I know that if the tefillah shgura b'fiv, if it rolls off my tongue, if it's literally settled in my mouth, I know that the tefillah will be answered. Conversely, if I stumble over the words, I know that I'm not going to be answered. So the Gemara says, Minahani Mili. From where did Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa know this? In other words, where did he get this concept that a tefillah that rolls easily off the lips is answered versus one that doesn't is not answered? Bore nivs vasayim shalom shalom l'rachal kolakarov amar Hashem araposiv. So Rabbi says, so therefore he's really dashing the first part. Bore nivs vasayim. Baruch Hu created again the utterances of the lips. So the idea over here is if the utterances come out in a normal fashion, right, in a flowing fashion, Amar Hashem v'raposiv. That means the refuah, or whatever the request, is going to be granted. Conversely, if the bracha, if the tefillah comes out, like a little bit garbled, or one is stumbling over their words, that's unfortunately an indication that the tefillah is not answered. Okay, so we'll see some really beautiful Gemara ahead of us. Amar B'chia bar Avam Rav Yochanan, Kol hanaviyim kulan lo nisnavu ela lamasi bitul tamid chacham. So listen to this. So this expression is an interesting one. All of the prophets only prophesies for. Now I will say this expression means whenever you find brachos mentioned in the Torah or brachos mentioned in the Nevi'im, those brachos apply to Ela Lamasi Bitel Tamid Chacham, one who marries off his daughter to a Tamid Chacham, or La'osa Prakmat Tamid Chacham, or one who does business for a Talmid Chacham. So we'll say this refers to someone who, let's say, takes the Talmid Chacham's money or his merchandise and invests it for him and makes him the money so that he has the benefit, he has the money, but he doesn't have to take his time to engage in the business practices. Or Lemahana Talmid Chacham Nechasef, or someone who shares his assets. Someone who shares his property, his belongings with a Talmid Chacham. So I will say, so essentially a person who marries his daughter off to a Talmid Chacham or financially helps a Talmid Chacham, someone like that sees tremendous bracha. So you have to say, imagine the following. If there's tremendous bracha for marrying off your daughter or for helping to support the Talmid Chacham, then what? Alachas kama v'kama, the bracha that the Talmid Chacham himself receives. Ayin lo rasa lakim zulasecha yasan mechakya lo. So I'll say, so that the pasuk says, Ayin lo rasa. Literally again, the eye never saw such bracha. In other words, for the Talmid Chacham himself, his bracha that he receives, indescribable. Indescribable. Was so beautiful. All of the brachas and all of the beautiful things that are recorded in the Nevi'im, those only refer to the Messianic era. Those refer to the beautiful brachos that Amir Hashem will come after Mashiach comes. Aval the olam haba, but in the world to come, this is actually interesting. So here the Gemara is making a distinction. Yemos HaMashiach refers to the Messianic era in this world. Right? Mashiach comes, life in this world. Olam haba refers to the afterlife. So the Gemara says, whenever you see whatever brachos you have described the greatness in the Messianic era, ava olam haba, both the world to come, ayin lo rasa elokim zulascha. Ultimately, again, I will say olam haba, the world to come. Literally, again, the afterlife. That indescribable. Literally, the eye never saw it.
So why don't we want Mashiach so bad?
I'm sorry.
Why don't we want Mashiach so bad?
What do you mean?
Just die of our own
Because at the end of the day, I think people still naturally yearn to live. Right? I'm saying, sure, you don't even need this Gemara. I know objectively that Olam Haba is better than Olam Hazeh. I know it objectively. Right. Do you want to go there now?
No, I know that.
Yeah.
But I also give up so much on this world. I mean, I actually like Judaism, but I give up so much.
Good to hear.
Because
you want Olam Haba.
What's going to be in the future.
Right.
So I might as well just get the real thing, the best thing, Olam Haba.
I don't know. I still think that there's some. Remember again, the problem. Just understand. Once you get to Olam Haba, your assets are frozen, right? So like whatever you have, you have. That's it. So that's a machlokes. So actually, it feeds into the Gemara. So watch this. The Gemara says, "Upliga de Shmuel." This argues on Shmuel. Damar Shmuel, ein beina Olam Hazeh limos Mashiach, ella shibud malchios bilvad. So both say. This is tremendous, by the way, that there is a fascinating machlokes about what is Yemos Mashiach. So they both say, and this, by the way, this is one of these things that, like, we'll know it when we know it. So is Yemos Mashiach like this supernatural, like, overwhelming, dramatically different world? Or maybe not. Maybe Yemos Mashiach is the same thing as this world. Same life, right? You're still paying, well, hopefully there'll be vouchers. Day school vouchers, right? But otherwise, like it's the same thing. I'm sorry.
Full government funding.
Full government, right? Maybe not just vouchers, right? Let's go big, right? Let's say so. The Shmuel says, Yemos Mashiach is the same thing as this world, as this life. The only difference is Shibud Malchius. That was what Shibud Malchius. Shibud Malchius means that Klal Yisrael will not be oppressed by anyone, meaning that the nations of the world will recognize the holiness and the beauty and the elevated status of Klal Yisrael, and will worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I will say, when you think about that line, especially in the context in which we are living, that's incredible. I will say, just imagine that for a moment. Imagine a world that did not gang up on the Jewish people. Not only that, but imagine a world in which looked up to Klal Yisrael. Imagine a world where everyone recognized the sovereignty of the Rebbeinu Shalom. But now, it doesn't mean that there's not sin. It doesn't mean there's not bad stuff that happens. But there's a fundamental shift, like in the theology of humanity. So Shmuel says, but other than that, everything else remains the same. So you're going to work, right? And you may still struggle with parnasa. And there may be health issues, because as he quotes the pasuk over here, Kilo yachtal evyon mikarav haaretz. Literally, again, the poor will never cease to exist from the midst of the land. In other words, that even in the Messianic era, there will be poverty. So I'll say, so what's different about the Messianic era is, again, no one oppresses Klal Yisrael. There's no anti-Semitism. And everyone recognizes the centrality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah?
Well, could it be that but even though there's poverty, people, because they understand what's going on, that they're more accepting of their lot? More peace of mind of being poor versus constantly struggling, trying to get rich.
It's possible, and it's possible that with this heightened level of God awareness, people are just more accepting of just like the hashgacha pratis, the divine providence in lives. Again, the point of this Gemara is we don't know what it is. Because I just want to point out over here, you have this dramatic machlokes. One opinion saying, literally again, Mimosa Mashiach, it's like one step below Olam Haba. Which sounds like a supernatural existence. Shmuel, no, totally natural existence, except everyone recognizes the greatness of Klal Yisrael, no anti-Semitism, that's what it sounds like, no Shiva Malchius, and theologically everyone recognizes HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Was it during Shlomo? When did they think David? Was it Shlomo?
During time of Shlomo Melech, yeah.
Right, because we were the top of the world.
So which is interesting because there's also that same idea that Ein Mekabelin Geira B'Mos HaMashiach. Which again, so it's interesting to know, like, does everyone subscribe to that? Or perhaps, once again, maybe that depends on your view of the Messianic era. Yeah. So just pointing out, now, I just want to mention to you, it's always fascinating to me. Like, if you think about like two theological pillars upon which our religion is situated, number one is the belief in an afterlife, right? Olam Haba. Number two is belief in Mashiach. So we'll say, how incredible is it that like two things which are core and central to our belief system, we know nothing about. We know nothing about it. Like, literally, again, the Gemara, which tells us about everything, cannot shed light on this particular issue. So we'll say, what's the pshat? What's the pshat? So it's a very simple yisod. Rav Shlomo speaks about this concept. I think I mentioned this in a different idea. Rav Hirsch brings down, he says, if you notice, churches are very often attached to cemeteries. He says shuls are never attached to cemeteries. And the truth is, the only time you'll find shuls attached to cemeteries, like in Eastern Europe, you have a lot of this. But that was an issue of land ownership. That's really what that was. So I'll say, so Rav Hirsch brings down, because Yiddishkeit is a life-affirming religion. Like, that's why I believe in Olam Haba, but the truth is, that's actually not the thrust of my life. I'm not in a rush to get there. You see this in contrast to other religions, where like the greatest avoda in the world, right, is to kill yourself for the sake of God, right? To go ahead and give up your life for the sake of God, because you're promised a beautiful afterlife. We also believe in a beautiful afterlife, but we're in no rush to get there, for the simple reason that in the afterlife you can't accomplish anything. In this world you could accomplish everything. So I think it's by design. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to remain focused on maximizing life in this world, and does not want us focused on what's to come in the future, Olam Haba or Yemos HaMashiach. Okay, incredible Gemara. Let's go right. I'll say this is so beautiful. All of the prophets, they only prophesized, ultimately, when they speak about reward, they speak about reward for Bali Tshuva. People who do Tshuva, Avat Tzadikim Gemurim, but ultimately, again, they're perfectly righteous. Now, again, Tzadikim Gemurim means what? It means, again, people who are, now, Bepashtos, I will say, now you can't say, a Tzadik Gomer can't mean someone who never sinned. Right? Because at the end of the day, everybody sins. But Tzadikim Gemurim are people who are not, don't need to be Bali Tshuva. Avat Tzadikim Gemurim, Ayin Lo Rasa Lakim Zulasecha. So I will say, so it's interesting. So whenever you see reward, so the reward often that we see, that's the reward for Bali Tshuva. But Tzadikim Gemurim, oh my gosh, the reward is simply totally and wholly and fundamentally indescribable. Indescribable. So I'll say it's beautiful Gemara. Please, Rabbi Avo. This argues on Rabbi Avo. Why? What does Rabbi Avo say? Dam Rabbi Avo, Makom Shebali Tshuva Omdin, Tzadikim Gemurim Einon Omdin. So I will say this is beautiful. Such a beautiful Rabbi Avo says, everyone thinks that the Tzadik Gomer is greater than the Baal Tshuva. But it's not true. Literally, again, makom, the place where Bali Tshuva stand. Which what does it mean, the place where Bali Tshuva stand? A Bali Tshuva is someone who had a choice to live his life a different way, and did live his life a different way. And then he chose to make a fundamental decision, a cathartic decision, a life-altering decision, and move himself and his life in a totally different direction. The Tzaddik Gomer, as great as he is, does not understand the power of the Baal Tshuva. It's such an incredible Gemara. So the Gemara says, Shneimar, Shalom, Shalom, L'rachok, U'lekarov. The pasuk says, peace, peace, beyond to the one, beyond, peace, peace, beyond. All right. Should be conveyed to, right? The one who is far and the one who is close. So the Gemara says, L'rachok bereisha, v'had l'karov. So you see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu extends his Shalom to who? First to the one who is far, that's to the Baal Tshuva, and only afterwards does he give his bracha of shalom to the one who is close. So beautiful. Rabbi Yochanan will say, "My rachok." What does rachok mean? Shahaya rachok midvar avera meikara. This refers to someone who is distant from an avera from the beginning, meaning of Tzadik Gomer. Umay karov, and who's the one who's close? Shaya karov l'dvar avera v'nischachik mimeno hashta. That's the person who is close to an avera, but now Baruch Hashem, now he distanced himself from him. So we'll say, see what's happening over here? What an incredible machlok. So we'll say, who's greater? Who's greater, the Baal Tshuva or the Tzadik Gomer? Who's greater? And you see over here, we'll say it's a fundamental theological machlokas. Perhaps it's greater never to have fallen into the real clutches of sin. Right? And that way, again, kind of maintain your personal purity and pristine kite, versus someone who fell into the clutches of sin and then ultimately, again, had to rehabilitate himself. Or conversely, maybe the opposite. Maybe someone who fell into the clutches and showed the ability to rehabilitate himself shows that he clearly has a much greater inner strength than even inside the Gomer. Dav, what are you going to say?
The clarification of call tshuva is it someone who was born or raised observant and then decided to take a break and then came back? Or is it someone who was raised in no better and then came back?
Baal tshuva is someone who was living a life not in conformance with the principles of Torah. Whether because they knew they weren't living that life, or they were just born into a particular family and found out afterwards that, hey, there's something else. The ikar of the Baal Tshuva is kind of not how he got into this life that is not in conformance with Torah. That really is irrelevant. The Baal Tshuva is, when he realized this, he made the choice to pivot. To get out. Again, right, I want to point out that Baal Tshuva could have a negative connotation, like you said, of a guy who was, what was your lashon? He was in it, then he took a break? Yeah, that's interesting, right? Took a break. That's a sabbatical, right? The sabbatical, I think a sabbatical, right? So that's one way, but the truth is that the simpler way just to look at it is just someone, it doesn't matter why you weren't living that Torah lifestyle. At the end of the day, you weren't living it. But now a person, after they realized it, decided, I want to pivot. That power and that ability to pivot, at the end of the day, that's about tshuva. So the Gemara goes right there. My ayin lo rasa. So we'll say, what does it mean, ayin lo rasa? Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, ze yayin hamashumar ba'anavav misheshis mebreshis. Well, this is beautiful. What is this example of something that is so sweet, such bracha, that the eye never saw it? This refers to the wine that is in the grapes that were created in the 6 days of creation. So Rabbosai, there is this messianic wine that is going to be something ridiculous. It's been literally, again, aged in the grapes. Whoever heard of such a thing like this, right? Wine aged in the grapes from the beginning of creation, and ultimately, again, ready for Mashiach to squeeze in. Rabbi Shua bar Nachmani Amar, Ze Eden shelo shalta ba'ayin. Kalberia. This refers to Eden. Eden is a place that no human being ever set foot on. The Gemara says, Shema Tomer Adam HaRishon Heichan Haya. One second, Adam HaRishon was in Eden. No, maybe Adam HaRishon was in Gan. I will say, if you look at the pasuk in the Torah, Adam HaRishon was in the Began Be'eden. He was in the Gan in Eden, almost as if Eden is a larger geographic area, and Adam HaRishon was in one very specific part of Eden called the Gan. V'Shema Tomar, Hu Gan, Hu Eden. Maybe you'll say it's the same place. Gan and Eden in the same place. Tamalomar, V'nar Yotze Me Eden Lahashkos Es HaGan. The pasuk says that the river flowed forth from Eden to go ahead and water the Gan. Gan L'chud, Ve'eden L'chud. So I said, very beautiful. Very beautiful. Two different places. There's an Eden and there's a Gan. Adam HaRishon lived in the Gan, and obviously the Gan is situated in Eden, but it could be that there are parts of Eden that man never saw. Man never set his eyes upon. Incredible. Tana Rabbanan. All right, well, so let's go. Really incredible. Gemara, we have another minute or two. Listen to this. There was once an episode where the son of Rabbi Gamliel became ill. Shagar Shnei Tamid. Yeah, that's your boy making the noise. That's a Spiro. You know what? Can't you guys control yourselves? No. So the Gemara says as follows. Baruch Hashem, it's beautiful. So you should just know, Rav Morty runs such a beautiful group over here on Wednesday nights, mamish for these teens. Magnificent, absolutely magnificent. So the Gemara says as follows. The Gemara says, so what happened? Rabbi Gamliel one time had a son who was ill. Shagar Shnei Tamid Chacham Eitzer B'Chanina Mendoza. So he sent to two Tamid Chacham and Rabbi Chanina Mendoza to go right to Vakish Alav Rachamim. And ultimately, again, Rabbi Gamliel was doing this in order to go ahead and Rabbi Gamliel was sending Tamid Chacham to Rabbi Chanina Mendoza. Rabbi Chanina Mendoza should daven for his son. Daven for his son who was ill. Kevan Shira Osam, when Rabbi Chanina Mendoza saw the Tamid Chacham approaching, Allah La'aliyah, so Rabbi Chanina Mendoza ran to the attic. Ubikesh alav rachman, and he davened for Rabbi Gamliel's son. Biridasa amar lahem l'chu shechaltzaso chama. So Rabbi Chanina Mendoza came down and he said to the two messengers, "Guys, you can go home. Rabbi Gamliel's son's fever broke. He's good." Amrulo v'chi naviyata. So they said to Rabbi Chanina Mendoza, "Are you a navi?" Amar lahem lo navi anochi v'lo ben navi anochi. I'm not a navi. I'm not the son of a navi. Elakach mikublani. This is my Kabbalah. What's my Kabbalah? Im shkura tfilasi befi. If the tefillah is organized in my mouth, yodea ani shehu mekubal. I know that the tefillah is accepted. Ve'im lav. And if not, Yodea ani shehu meturaf. I know that the tefillah ultimately, again, is meturaf literally means, again, torn up. In other words, that it's not going to be accepted. Mincha's 8:05, right? 8:05? Yeah, good. So we'll go for another minute. So Gemara says, Yashvu v'kasvu v'kivnu osasha. So they wrote down like, the exact moment that all of this was happening. Okay, Shabbat Yisra b'Gamliel, when he came to Rabbi Gamliel, Amar lahen ha'avoda lo chasartem v'lo hosartem elakach haya maisa ba'osasha chatzasu chama v'sha'al lanu mayim lishtos. Shabbat says, so beautiful. Rabbi Gamliel confirmed the time. He said, yeah, that's exactly what happened. At that exact moment, so they wrote down the time. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa came down and said, okay, Chaburah, we're good to go. We're good to go. Rabbi Gamliel's son has been cured. So the two Rabbanim wrote down the time. They came out to Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel says, yeah, that is the exact moment that my son's fever broke. The fever broke, Baruch Hashem, and he asked us for something to drink. All right, we'll stop over here for tonight. We'll pick up Amiras Hashem. Tomorrow night also Shir is at 7:40. Because Chasidus Chaburah, so Amiras Hashem 7:40 Shir, Chasidus Chaburah, and Rabbi Hossein Shkoyach. And Shkoyach Rabbi Shmuel for the iced tea. 7:40. Chasidus 8:00 tomorrow.
We should get these tomorrow.